He was dying on his kitchen floor, blood soaking into the marble tiles, and the only person in that entire mansion who came running was a 5-year-old girl in pink pajamas. Not his bodyguards. Not his 15 armed men outside. A child. And what she whispered in his ear before help arrived is the reason he's still alive today. But that's not even the part that's going to shock you. Stay with me, because what he found out about this little girl 3 weeks later made him question everything he thought he knew about loyalty, about family, and about who was really trying to kill him. If you like dark, emotional mafia stories that don't go where you expect, you're in the right place. Let's get into it. His name was Dominic Reyes. 38 years old. Ran the entire east side of the city, shipping, real estate, half the nightlife district, all of it a front for something much darker. That Tuesday night was supposed to be routine. Dinner alone. His men posted outside. His housekeeper, Marisol, finishing up in the kitchen with her daughter, Nova, who she brought along because the babysitter canceled. Dominic never let anyone's kids in the house. Ever. But Marisol had worked for him 6 years, and something about her that night, she looked exhausted, made him wave it off. Just this once. He didn't know that decision would save his life. Around 9 p.m., he sat down for dinner alone in his study, like always. 20 minutes later, he was on the floor, convulsing, his vision going white at the edges. Poison. Slow-acting, untraceable. The kind only someone with real money and real connections could get their hands on. His men were outside. His phone was across the room. And the only person who heard him fall was a little girl walking past the study door looking for her mother. Here's the part that's going to bother you. The entire video, Nova didn't scream. She didn't run for help first. She walked straight up to a bleeding, convulsing mafia boss like she'd done this before. Nova was 5. Small for her age, quiet, the kind of kid who watched more than she talked. She knelt down next to Dominic and did 3 things, in order, that no 5-year-old should know how to do. She turned his head to the side so he wouldn't choke. She pressed her small hand flat against his chest and counted, slowly out loud, like she was timing something. And then she said 4 words that stopped his racing heart cold. Even through the poison. Daddy did this before. Dominic didn't have kids. He'd never met this child's father. So who was Daddy? And why did a 5-year-old know exactly how to keep a poisoned man alive until paramedics arrived? By the time his security team burst in, Marisol was screaming. Medics were pushing past armed men twice her size, and Dominic was being loaded onto a stretcher, staring at this little girl standing perfectly calm in the chaos, like she'd rehearsed this moment her entire life. He survived. Barely. 3 days in a private medical facility, the kind mafia families use instead of hospitals, because hospitals ask questions. And the entire time he was recovering, he couldn't stop thinking about those 4 words. If you're starting to piece together where this is going, trust me, you're not even close. What he uncovered next didn't just shake his organization. It shook the foundation of his entire life. The moment Dominic could stand on his own, he did what any man in his position would do. He didn't call the police. He called his fixer, a man named Elias who specialized in finding things people didn't want found. Find out everything about Marisol Ortiz, Dominic said. Everything. Before she worked for me. 3 days later, Elias came back pale. Marisol wasn't just his housekeeper. 8 years ago, before Dominic even took over the east side, she'd been married to a man named Andres Cruz, a mid-level enforcer who worked for the previous boss, the man Dominic had personally removed from power to take control of the territory. Andres didn't just work for the old regime. He was poisoned. The exact same slow-acting compound. The exact same convulsions. The exact same collapse. Except nobody had been there to save him. Nova wasn't guessing when she said Daddy did this before. She wasn't confused. She had watched her own father die on a kitchen floor exactly like Dominic's, at exactly 5 years old. And she remembered every second of it. Which meant one horrifying thing. The same person who poisoned Andres Cruz 8 years ago had just poisoned Dominic. And that person had been inside his house, undetected, for years. I need you to sit with that for a second, because we haven't even gotten to the part where Dominic realizes the poisoner isn't finished. Don't stop now. This is where it gets dangerous. Dominic called an emergency meeting with his 5 most trusted men. The ones who'd been with him since before he took the throne. The ones who ate at his table, who knew where he slept, who carried the keys to every door in that mansion. One of them poisoned him. He was almost certain of it now. But here's where the story stopped being about revenge and became about something Dominic never expected. Protection. Because if whoever killed Andres Cruz 8 years ago was still operating inside his organization, then Marisol and Nova weren't just witnesses. They were loose ends. And in this world, loose ends don't survive long. Dominic did something that shocked his entire crew. He moved Marisol and Nova into the safest wing of the mansion, under armed guard, that same night, not as staff, but as protected family. His men whispered about it. Some thought he'd gone soft. Some thought grief and poison had scrambled his judgment. They didn't understand yet. Dominic wasn't protecting a housekeeper out of guilt. He was protecting the only 2 people who could identify a killer who'd been sitting at his table for years, smiling at him, serving him drinks, waiting for the next opportunity. And when he finally sat Nova down, gently, carefully, the way you talk to a child who's already seen too much, and asked her one simple question. "Nova, sweetheart, do you know who hurt your daddy?" Her answer made every hardened man in that room go silent. She pointed. Not to a stranger. Not to someone from the old regime. She pointed at a photograph on Dominic's own wall. A picture of his inner circle, taken 2 years ago at his father's memorial. I promise you, the person she pointed to is not who you're expecting. Keep watching because in the next 60 seconds, Dominic's entire world collapses for the second time. The finger landed on Salvatore, Dominic's underboss. His father's oldest friend. The man who'd taught Dominic everything he knew about running the territory. The man everyone assumed would take over if anything ever happened to him. Nobody in that room breathed. Because if Nova was right, if a 5-year-old's memory of watching her father die 8 years ago was accurate, then Salvatore hadn't just betrayed Dominic. He'd killed the old boss's enforcer to eliminate anyone who could expose how he'd secretly been feeding information to a rival family this entire time, positioning himself to inherit control the moment Dominic was gone. 2 poisonings. 8 years apart. Same target profile. Same method. Same man standing quietly in every photo, at every family dinner, at every moment that mattered. Invisible because nobody ever suspects the man who raised you. When confronted, Salvatore didn't deny it. He smiled instead. He told Dominic that empires like this only survive through patience, and he'd been patient for 8 years, and he'd be patient for 8 more if that's what it took. That's when Dominic understood something that changed how he saw everything. This was never just about him. Salvatore wasn't building a small betrayal. He'd been quietly maneuvering alliances across 3 territories, using Dominic's trust as cover, preparing to take not just the east side, but the entire regional network the moment the timing was right. A 5-year-old girl in pink pajamas had just stopped a citywide takeover before it even started. Stay with me for one more minute, because what Dominic decided to do with Salvatore, and what he promised Nova and her mother, is the ending nobody saw coming. Salvatore was gone within the week. What happened to him, Dominic never spoke of again, but his seat at the table was never filled. Marisol was no longer staff. Dominic set her and Nova up in a home outside the city, far from that world, with more security than most world leaders. He visits twice a month. Not as her boss. As the man whose life a 5-year-old saved twice. Once from poison. And once from a betrayal that would have cost him everything. Nova still doesn't fully understand what she did. To her, she just remembered what her daddy taught her, without meaning to, before he died. But Dominic knows the truth. In a world built on loyalty that can be bought, the only person who never asked for anything, who never played an angle, who saved him for absolutely no reason at all, was a child. Now I need to know what you think. If you were Dominic, would you have trusted a 5-year-old's memory to accuse the man who raised you? Or would you have needed more proof first? Tell me in the comments, because I've seen this exact debate split people right down the middle, and I want to know which side you're on.